but you have to be able to bring value. And Tim, this goes to your earlier point about talking about value. You have to bring, and I don't care if value is internal or external. You have to give value to the resource to be able to say, I absolutely see your value proposition. I understand why we should use you. And we did that.
Now is the time to take what we learned during the pandemic and adapt. Build your supplier relationships, strengthen your operations, refocus on value. Understand what value is.
Be fearless is my recommendation to procurement leaders. Be fearless.
I have to say, it's something that continues to surprise me. So either I'm a little slow, or this is a trend that I'm just seeing more and more. But what in the last few months, the conversations I've been having, what keeps surprising me is how many people think we're going back to 2019. It's this concept of we've reached the end of the pandemic, we're going to go back to normal. And that's so surprising to me because I don't feel like there's any way to go back. We're in a new normal and we're going to have to adjust to it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. New normal is definitely a buzzword that's resonating today. Hey, Ward, I'd like to get your thoughts on this too.
I love, Tim, your words are spot on. You know what I think about when, look, I'm just a regular guy in the street. When I go to Costco in 2019, 2020, there was a run on toilet paper for a,
there was
for a virus that had nothing to do with your digestive tract. That was surprising to me. But what it told me is that supply chains were not designed the way they're actually meant to when there's disruptive events. And to your exact point is, I think the world kind of changed. Now, what's changed in the world of procurement? I go to Costco, there's plenty of toilet paper pretty much all the time. But did we overbuild? Did we over manufacture? Are we going to rue the day that we actually built for that? Because we're going to maybe get back to some degree of normality. Maybe we don't have that type of demand, but there will be some other interruptive event. My question is how does that stockpile build up? Like we had a chip shortage, now there's a chip surplus. How did that happen? Well, we overbuilt. So the question is how do we get to regulatory? Yep. How do we regulate where we are? And that's going to be the interesting thing for me to see.
Yeah, I think I was going to say, the pendulum's kind of swung the other way, and then, it'll, react, they'll have a reaction to that.
I think the other thing we learned, Ward, is that the bedrock underpinning our society is clearly toilet paper. That's what is protecting us. Civilization is on that narrow edge. And if we lose that toilet paper,
we get 36 rolls out of 12 rolls. That's a deal.
There you go. All right, moving on. So I'd like to ask you, Tim, what is the most overlooked opportunity that you see in the current procurement landscape?
Building strategic supplier relationships. So and I see this going back well before the pandemic. It just in the pandemic, it was exposed. So for the 25 years leading up to the pandemic, you had this increasing shift towards tactical buying, where you just squeeze the suppliers. And every year you could get your money. Every year you got your 3%, your 5%. And every year you kept coming back and asking for more. And the suppliers started to feel like they were being taken advantage of, but the economy and the global supply chain was so stable, you never really suffered for it. And all that broke down, it fractured in the pandemic. And to some degree, leverage shifted the suppliers and they got even. And prices went up. And in some cases, some industries, you saw clear signs of gouging. And some of that was pent-up frustration from 25 years of being squeezed. And now leverage is starting to normalize. And with it, we as a profession have the opportunity to really rebuild those strong supplier relationships that are going to make our supply chains more elastic when the next crisis hits.
I think you're right on. As a matter of fact, I think there's really two things that I would kind of double click down on here, which is number one is empathy in negotiations. And that's being driven really by number two, which is relationship building. Everyone whenever you work in any industry long enough, and Lord knows for 30 years of my life in procurement, right, you come up with your own perspective and philosophies and sayings of whatever you are in your space. One of my sayings has always been, ask my team members on the procurement side, they'll tell you this, is the last dollar is worth plus or minus more than $1, and it's up to you to determine what it's worth. So I could absolutely get that last dollar. Don't get me wrong. I'll get the 3%, 5% you were just talking about, Tim, which is perfectly stated. But it's a difference between picking up the phone and dialing, hey, Tim, I need a favor. My green light turned red. Could you turn it green again? And dialing 1-800 help desk and getting some guy offshore that you hope to God is going to be able to help you within 12 hours of your SLA. That, to me, when I talk about empathy and negotiations, as a middle resource, as a procurement resource, I always absolutely say you have to have one foot fully in your own camp for your own organization, but you better have an equal and opposite foot fully in the supplier's camp as well. And another one of my sayings from my philosophy of the world of procurement is happy supplier, happy buyer. Unhappy supplier, guess what? Unhappy buyer. So I think that we have to get back to the days where we understand more of a full view and saying, look, I may not be getting the lowest price on this, but you know what I'm buying? I'm buying satisfaction. I'm buying happiness. I'm buying service level. I'm buying capability. I'm picking up the phone and saying, hey, Tim, the green light turned red. Could you turn it green again?
Yep.
Good stuff. I think
Another way I would think about that is value is more than dollars.
100%. 100%. That's right. Yeah. Maybe another way I look at it is to say, if it's free but it's broken, it doesn't mean I want it. Right? I have to get value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, we've seen a proliferation of procurement software solutions on the market. What is the one thing, Tim, that you would like to see change in the solution provider space?
That's funny. That's a good question. And I don't completely have a horse in this race because I'm not generally the end user of e-procurement software. I have clients who are the end users of this software. So a lot of my thoughts here are colored by the feedback and the conversations I have with some of our clients. What I'm hearing now, kind of these things kind of bubble and you kind of bubble up to the surface a little bit. And what I'm hearing is they want greater integration across functional groups. So they want to be able to have procurement linked to supply chain, linked to their logistics, linked to their warehouse, flow through to their operations, and just have it smooth, have it simple, bring a high degree of visibility, transparency, and ease.
Tim, you stole the word out of my mouth, transparency. Now, look, I'm obviously biased. I'm one of the co-founders of this company we call Raindrop. So take it for what it's worth, folks, if you're watching. But here's the reality. I think that if we look back to how our industry started, and we could look at some of the existing legacy providers out there right now that might be 20, 30, 35 years old, which was on-premise based, perpetual license based software that, they're somehow trying to SaaSify to make it easy to use. Good luck. Is we saw the pendulum going from the far side over there to the far other side, which is now I just want a point solution, just something that's easy to use. And so maybe it's just,
Yes.
and before this call, actually, Tim, we started, we were talking about, hey, let's say I have a supplier relationship management module, and I just only sell the point solution just to do that. And I do it well, easy to use, quick to do, but I can integrate it to like one or two or multiple different systems to be able to get value. And the problem is I have data leakage because it's not integrated to everything, which means I have probably spend leakage because I don't have insights into everything, which means I have compliance leakage because of my security team. We don't have all our systems talking to each other. And so what's happening is I think you're starting to see the pendulum swing back away from the point solution side, moving back to looking for that full suite platform that does everything. Now, shameless plug, Raindrop does that. Thank you very much. So give me a call. But I think that when you see that movement back that direction, that you have something that's easy to use, quick to deploy, rapid to gain value from, so I can start accessing and getting value out of what I bought, and I can do it all at a price that is fits my budget, as well as I get excellent support from the supplier, a Raindrop or not, by the way. I think the movement back to that integrated full suite solution is absolutely going to go that way. So yeah, that's my
And I
take on it.
think, I think, from the conversations and from just my opinion and the pulse, I think it's the executives, the CPOs that are innovative and brave that gain the advantage here. Because I think you're right. I think there is a little bit of a shift. I think there's going to be a change in this market. And I think it is going to become easier to use these softwares and to link these platforms. And I think it's the CPOs that lean in on that are going to really benefit.
100% agree with that comment. At the end of the day, it takes a long time to become a CPO. You just don't fall into that role. The top of the pyramid is very small. And so those folks who are going to say, look, I'm going to dispense with the conservative approach of, nobody gets fired for recommending IBM. And okay, that saying has been outdated by 20 years, but I think you get the idea, is folks who in the CPO chair are going to look at, or CFO chair or CIO chair, you get the idea, are going to look at that and say, look, I'm going to take a real look at this industry and how many full suite, single pane of glass, single code base, true SaaS cloud built software packages out there on the market today. Well, I can tell you there's one. And I think I think that is going to be where those CPOs who look at and say, I'm going to throw a little caution to the wind. I'm going to look for what is solving my business needs, not the logo that's attached to it necessarily. Does it fulfill my business needs? Is it easy to use? Which means not ease of use. It really means internal stakeholder adoption, right? People are going to say, hey, I can't wait to use that 30-year-old software package. Like nobody ever said that, right? So our goal is to see, and Dave, I guess this gets back to your question, what would we like to see change is, to Tim's point, that movement that we're going to see is by the risk willing to be taken, the innovative, the thought leader, procurement, CPO resources that are going to say, there's a different world out there today. Maybe it kind of started because of COVID and we had to shift to everyone's working at home. Well, I have a distributed workforce. I have to go buy tools. They have to be easy to use. They have to be quick to deploy. I have to get rapid access to value. And I have to get great service levels for something I can afford because I may not have had it in budget. That to me, I think is the space that we're looking to change. And I think that's something the innovative leaders are looking at.
Yeah, I think that, business as usual and the old, same old, and, hey, getting the job done is going to take something more than just, the way it's always been the last 20 years. It's like, what do we need to do for the next 20 years, not the previous? So I know we spent time talking about procurement and the supplier. The kind of the other leg of the stool really is stakeholders, is the business community. So I was going to throw this out here, is what is really kind of the greatest challenge that you guys are hearing about internal stakeholder relationships, because that's really pretty darn important. Maybe we'll start with you.
I'm going to jump in on that one. I'll tell you, I have a great story. I was many years ago working at actually, you can look me up on LinkedIn for the folks who are watching this on video. I don't have to name the company, but I was working at a large digital storage company. I was running their technology sourcing organization, and my partner over in IT was running operations at the time. And they were not using my procurement team. And I just joined the company. And I found out we're not being used. We have no access to the networking team, the telecom network, IT organization. They go do their own thing with the suppliers. And I went and met with the head of operations. And sure enough, he's like, you don't have anybody who knows what we do for a living. You don't understand the technology. You don't know what on-net or off-net or circuits kinds or even benchmark, and so, you know what, you're 100% right. We absolutely don't. But what we're going to do is we're going to get those resource capabilities. Now, I don't care if you hire them on or if you buy a third party or their contract, whatever the case may be, but you have to be able to bring value. And Tim, this goes to your earlier point about talking about value. You have to bring, and I don't care if value is internal or external. You have to give value to the resource to be able to say, I absolutely see your value proposition. I understand why we should use you. And we did that. We actually, in this case, I brought in an expert resource in the network space to run that functional spend. And we were integrated and saved, a lot of money, and we did good stuff. And we created optimization and efficiency and value. That to me was the definition of the wins. That's kind of my thoughts on this space.
I like that. And I like the example you gave was between the two different operating groups. And I think that's where I'm seeing friction, challenge with stakeholder groups is between the competing priorities. And going back to my first answer, it's from between the people who expect things to go back to the way they were and the people who want to take risk mitigation to the extreme. And a lot of times it's finance on one side who looks at this and says, let's go get back what we lost over the last 3 years. Go claw it back for me. And on the other side, you have operations who really, in many ways, emotionally felt the disruption, had the stress of the disruption, and customer service and sales who had that stress of the disruption and the stockouts and delays in manufacturing schedules. And they're looking at this and saying, no, de-risk. And procurement is in a lot of ways caught in the middle. And that's a tough place to be.
Agreed.
So Tim, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give to procurement executives today?
My advice would be, we're in a period of relative calm. We've come out of a period of great, significant turbulence and hardship. Today, we're in a period of relative calm. Leverage is kind of normalizing. And, we have some storm clouds on the horizon, but they're not here yet. Don't waste this opportunity. Now is the time to take what we learned during the pandemic and adapt. Build your supplier relationships, strengthen your operations, refocus on value. Understand what value is for each of your strategic categories for your organization. It's not all dollars. It's not all delivery. What is it that you need to meet your strategic objectives? And prepare, take this time to prepare for the next crisis, because there will be one.
My answer is very similar. I would use 2 words, and I'll go a little further. Be fearless is my recommendation to procurement leaders. Be fearless. Don't be afraid to get and mandate that I have executive sponsorship inside my company. We moved from the low-level operational, and Tim, you were talking about this, to up. Finally, procurement got a seat at the chair, at the chairman's room, the board table, where during the crash, right, during the pandemic, everyone was like, hey, I got to have the procurement guy, like supply chain has to be in my room. I have to have insight to what's going on. We moved up. Now stay in that position, be fearless, stay in there, stay strong. Make sure you're building those internal relationships really with all levels. It should be from the lunchroom to the boardroom. It shouldn't just be, hey, I have only executive sponsorship, but when I go internally, I don't have support. Or maybe my suppliers, they don't see that I give them that much lend credibility to what they're delivering for us in value. I would say be fearless.
I love that. And what I'm going to add is, you're at the table. You're at the executive table now. The way to stay there is to prove your value. So take these competing interests, these competing stakeholder interests, look at the corporate strategy and elevate the conversation to meet in the middle. Bring them to the strategic goals.
Agreed.
Well, fantastic, guys. Thank you so much both for your time today. I think this is a really insightful session, and I really look forward to having some additional ones in the future. So have a great day.
I think we passed up our 5 minutes, but hey, listen, you know what? It was time well spent. We'll call this 5 and 10, not 5 and 5. How about that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave. I had a lot of fun.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Dave. Take care, guys.